Alright guys, I have good news. I have all of your tests graded. But they're not on Blackboard yet, so I'm working on that. It'll get on there, okay? For you guys that are waiting. Alright, so ignore this first slide here, because this is not your class, obviously. What I did is I'm taking a lecture from my upper level class and giving it to you guys to look at more in depth of the gender since you all read the chapter, right? With that extra half an hour from Tuesday? All of it? Okay? Alright, so you should be able to apply from what you've read to what we're going to talk about today, okay? So I want to try and get through this whole entire chapter today if we can. Alright? Does that sound good? It's not no big deal, but it would be fun if we did. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, so with gender, we have to operationalize between gender and sex. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. We kind of gave you the definition of it on Tuesday, but let's continue. So sex is the biological distinction between being female and being male. Okay, and these are the ways that we distinguish those. Chromosomes, gonads, hormones, internal sex organs, and external genitals. Okay? Any questions about that? Pretty self-explanatory, right? Oh, you do. Oh, yes, still don't have the test today, guys, so that will happen next week. So, another free day. Alright, anyways. So, with sex, we start getting into the gray areas, because we know that sex, organs and things like that, it's not always black and white, right? We have intersex individuals, which are people with mixed or ambiguous genitals. Okay? We've heard of it, right? We've all heard of it. It happens. Alright, so intersex development refers to congenital variations in the reproductive system, sometimes resulting in ambiguous genitals. Either female or male, okay? Both. Alright, individuals in this category may see themselves as one gender or the other, or a mix. Okay? Because, and we'll get into it more, but our culture likes to identify if you're a male or a female. And if we can't, it's weird, right? We have a hard time relating to that. Alright? So, within our culture, we like to say, are you a girl or are you a boy? And we follow those gender roles, which we'll get more into. Okay? Alright. Like I said, typically raised as a man or a woman due to culture. Individuals who experience variations in gender, such as lesbians, gay males, bisexuals, transgender, and intersex individuals, often feel isolated, excluded, and fear due to stigmatization. Why? Because of our culture, right? We like people to be the traditional male and female, in this heterosexual kind of way, right? It's trendy. It's becoming different. All right, we won't get into that today, but it is becoming different and more open-minded. But our society likes to have the black and white and the traditional kind of roles. All right. So let's get into gender, since everybody understands sex, right? We're good. All right. So gender is the social and psychological behaviors associated with being male or female. Yeah? All right. So, technically, you can choose your gender. Okay? And we'll talk some more into that. Alright, so it's usually dichotomized, which means there's two categories. You're either masculine or you're feminine. Alright? We associate males as being masculine, and we associate females as being feminine. I'm not going to get too much into it because we're going to get into it. Alright, now there's the debate. Is gender nature or is gender nurture? Is it biology that creates our gender, or is it the environment that creates our gender? There's a big debate. There's experts on both sides. But we've also found that in all these studies that go on, and we'll talk about studies on both sides, that it's kind of a mix of both. Okay? There's factors that are both related to the nature side or the biology side that predict our gender, and there's also factors that relate to the nurturing side or our environmental. Okay? Let's see here. This researcher, studied 3 to 4-year-old twins and non-twins, and they're identical twins. Why do researchers study identical twins? They have the same DNA, so what can we exclude from that? Biology factors, right? Yeah, because if they have the same DNA, they're the exact same makeup biology-wise, right? Okay. In this study, he found that gender is not always depicted by biology. Okay, it's also the way that we are nurtured. Okay, the way that our environment is. Okay, because he found some twins would identify more with being masculine, while the other twin might identify more with being feminine. Okay? But then there's a study on the other side. It's a book. This is a book called Nature Made Him, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Girl. And that really brings about nature versus nurture. And let me tell you about it. What happened was, when this boy was born, he had some medical issues, and they wound up, it destroyed his penis and stuff like that. So they wound up doing a sex change, okay? And they were meeting with a psychologist and everything else, and their psychologist told them, raise him as a girl, okay? He's gonna be a girl. Do everything as if he were a girl, okay? So for his whole entire life, he was raised as a girl. When he got older, he had someone, help him write this book and everything. But as he got older, he sat there and told everybody, I was never a girl, I was always a boy, okay? He always identified as a boy, even though nurture and his environment raised him as a girl, okay? The conflicts that he had with that, from being raised as a girl but feeling as if he was a boy the entire time, it drove him to commit suicide. So it's a pretty crazy, experience and story there. But that again brings up the argument of nature versus nurture. Because according to this story, he was born a boy and he was identified as a boy, even though he was raised as a girl. So there are kind of arguments for biology, right? Alright, so we can see both aspects of it. Alright, any questions about that? Good? Alright. Alright, so we know socialization, right? We're experts on it by now, huh? Yeah? We're good? Teaches us how to behave and react and everything else. Well, we are socialized to be a boy or to be a girl, okay? Socialized all the time, right, in that way. This socialization actually begins when your parents find out what sex you are. Alright, and we'll get into that. Let's see here. It does impact gender identity. We'll take the boy who was raised as a girl out of the equation because he's kind of on an outlier. But what we will say is that it does impact gender identity because when your parents find out that they are having, or any parents find out that they're having a girl, what do? They do what? Get her some dresses, right? They don't buy boys' dresses. What else do they do?
Everything's pink. They paint the nursery pink.
Yeah, they paint the nursery in a girl kind of thing. Okay? They pick a girl name, right? Okay? So everything, you are being already socialized into being a girl. From the day that you were born, well, if you are a girl, or a boy, whatever. But the day you were born, you're being socialized into that gender. Okay? Alright. Let's see. Margaret Mead. Has anybody heard of Margaret Mead before? Sweet, I've got a couple. Great. Remember, this stuff is not in your book, okay? This is fun, awesome information. Margaret Mead, what she did was she went outside of America to these other civilizations and societies, and she wanted to study the differences in gender. What she found in 3 different societies, that gender is defined differently, okay? In one society, she found that the women were more masculine, okay? They were taught to be more masculine. They were socialized that way. The men were more feminine, okay? Another society reflected ours, okay? Men are more masculine, women are more feminine. Another society, everybody was equal, okay? There wasn't a distinction so forth of, one's better than the other and things like that, okay? So her contributions to the study of gender, she says that they're learned through cultural and social environments. And from her studies, we have found that gender, the way that we understand it, is not universal, okay? So that means it's socially constructed, right? It's not human nature always for men to be more masculine and women to be more feminine, because it doesn't happen everywhere.
Ancient Egypt, the women went out and worked while the men stayed home.
Exactly. Okay, that was socially constructed. They were taught and socialized to be like that. Okay, you can find it all over throughout history and in cultures and everything else, all over. Okay. All right. So let's get to gender identity. It's the psychological state of viewing oneself as a boy or a girl, later as a man or a woman. Okay, and then we go to gender dysphoria, and that's the condition in which one's gender identity does not match one's biological sex. Okay. So if you're born a female, you might associate or identify as a male, okay? And vice versa, we see it. Alright, so let's talk about transgenderism. There's a lot of subtypes of this too, okay? Transgenderism is a generic term for a person of one biological sex who displays characteristics of the other, okay? And then we go into cross-dressers. There's somebody who sometimes might dress as the opposite sex, okay? Maybe they go out to certain places or something like that. I'll tell you a story. This is years and years and years ago when I was just starting out in the field of like mental health and counseling and everything. And I ended up getting involved with a family who actually didn't live in this state. They lived out of state. And the dad was a very prestigious man, actually. And the family was wealthy and everything else. But the dad would cross-dress. And the other family members didn't know about it. Okay? But he would do it in his room. He would call his wife's lingerie and clothes and things like that. He was a cross-dresser. And that's a true story, guys. That was a big experience for me for one of my first cases, I'll tell you that. Okay. Transsexuals. They are the individual who has the anatomical and genetic characteristics of one sex, but the self-concept of the other. Okay? I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. We've heard that before, right? Okay? They live full-time together gender. Okay? So you might have been born a female, but you live your life as a male, as a boy or a man. Okay? Full-time. There's no going back and forth. Who's heard of a pregnant man before? This happened, what, maybe like 10 years ago? Does that sound about right? Well, let me tell you about the pregnant man. The pregnant man was born a woman, okay? And I think, do you guys remember how the media, like, frenzied over this? Like, people went nuts, okay? But the pregnant man was actually born a woman, okay? And he had a sex change. Almost. He wound up getting a penis and everything else, but he kept his uterus, okay? So he got married, and his wife and everything, and they had a great relationship. It was wonderful. His wife did know about his history. Well, she couldn't get pregnant. So what they decided, because he still had, the organs to be able to carry, they decided that they would get him pregnant, and he would carry the child. And that's the pregnant man. You guys remember that now that I kind of told it? A little bit, man? It's very interesting. You should look into it. Alright, let's go into gender roles. Gender roles are behaviors assigned to a woman or a man in a society. Okay? How do you know how to act as a woman? And how do you know how to act as a man? Our society puts gender roles on us. Okay? And that depicts or predicts the behavior that we express or display or whatever, depending on our gender that we identify with. Okay? So, let's talk about, one of the easiest ways to talk about gender is to really get it down to the micro unit, which is families. Okay? So let's talk about the gender roles in a traditional family, which is your husband and your wife and kids. Okay? What are some gender roles of the mother? What do we know about moms? Cooking, domestic kind of work, right? They like to do the housework, right? What else?
They're more nurturing.
More nurturing and more caring. What else? What are some characteristics of women?
Smell good.
What was it?
Smell good.
They smell good. They care about their friends, right? Appearance and all that fun stuff.
Gentle.
They're gentle. What was it? They're emotional, right? Women are hysterically crazy. No, I'm just kidding. They're just emotional. Okay? All right. So they're the caregivers, right? They care for the children. They're the main providers in a traditional family role, right? Okay? So what about the dads? What are gender roles that describe the dad?
Provider.
What, angry? Is that what you said?
Provider.
Oh, provider! Well, maybe some of them are angry. Okay, so provider. Yeah, they're breadwinners and all that, right? Okay, what else? I'm sorry. The protector. Yes. Okay, they gotta protect the house and the family and everything else. What else? Not as involved in the child care, right? They're more aggressive, more competitive, sexually driven, right? These are all characteristics of males in our society. We'll get more into it. All right. What happens though if that married couple divorces? How does that impact gender roles? Yeah.
They both have to take on some of the gender roles of the other one.
Yes, they have to take on some of the other ones because guess what? Now mom has to go and find a job so she can provide. You know, dad gets some visitation rights or gets custody even. He's got to take on the nurturing role of mom, be more caring and all that fun stuff, right? So we can see that they have to mix their gender roles. They have to change them a little bit so that way they can survive and function. Alright, so let's talk about sex roles. Sex roles are the behaviors defined by biological constraint. Okay? We know that guys can do things that girls can't, and vice versa, right? Okay? One of these would be women can breastfeed their children. Men can't do that. Okay? What are some other ways of sex roles? Unless we count pregnant and women give birth, guys can't, right? Okay? Alright. Any other ones that you can think of?
Now, are we just talking about purely what other people are able to do, like
By a biological perspective.
from a biological perspective? I mean, like, if we want to look throughout history, the reason men, like, the reason rape is, higher when it's a man raping a woman, because men are physically stronger than women in most cases.
Okay, that could be a biological thing. But we know that there's some women who are stronger than guys, right? That happens.
Yes, but it's definitely the outlier.
So I can think of another one. And think of sex, like the actual act of sex. If you don't involve any other objects. Okay? Guys penetrate the female, right? Females can't do that with just their anatomical body. Okay? That's another biological constraint. Okay? Another sex role. Alright? Okay, so you guys get that, we'll go ahead. Alright, so gender role ideologies, the proper role relationships between women and men in society. Okay? It's the idea that men have certain roles they play and women have certain roles they play. Okay? Now, in this lecture, we talk a lot about relationship satisfaction and things like that. You guys still need to know that. But I will tell you, just for your own fun, when you guys start, marrying and all that fun stuff, that a relationship that is equal, okay, in their roles and power and things like that, have more satisfaction. Okay? We call it egalitarian relationships. Alright. Let's see here. Our society shapes male dominance all the time. Okay? How do we do that? We talked about one in the gender role. Okay, we're going to get into it more. But we said guys bring home the money, right? Do guys have more power in relationships? In general society, they do. And we'll get into that, okay? But what else? We talked about it in the market and who gets the jobs. Who gets the high-paying jobs? Men. Okay? Let's look at the bias, male bias in our current language today. Okay? It's starting to trend. We're starting to see different things change. But if you're good at chairman. Now they changed it to chairperson, but it used to be a chairman. Okay? What else? Anybody know of any other things that were like that?
Councilman.
Councilman. Okay? What? Fireman. What? Policeman. We see it all the time. It's always man, right? They're starting to change that, but we can see the male bias in there, okay? They were the only guys were the only ones that could take from that, right? Okay, it's all about guys. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to get into some theories about gender, okay? Some of these theories are listed in your book, some are not. Alright? Biosocial theory, we also call it sociobiology. It emphasizes the interaction of one's biological or genetic inheritance with one's social environment to explain and predict human behavior. Anybody know what I'm saying by all that jargon? Any guesses? Nick? Basically, we're saying that your biology, whatever makes up your biology, is going to make up your behavior, okay? So your instincts, right? Motherly instincts are considered part of a sociobiology approach, right? We would also consider hormones part of that, right? Because guys have more, what hormone? Testosterone, which makes them more aggressive and masculine, right? Women don't have that as much.
They have estrogen though, which is pretty much takes the place of testosterone.
Right. What does estrogen do? Makes you more feminine, right? Helps you grow those female parts and all that fun stuff, okay? So, from a sociobiology standpoint, those hormones help you predict your behaviors, okay? Alright, so it's an evolutionary survival function to it. Alright, so if you ever hear something that, a behavior, and it sounds like it could be something that might be related by biology, you're probably looking at sociobiology theory. Who's heard of parental investment before? Nah? That's right, I'm going to tell you what it is. Alright, parental investment is a part of sociobiology because what it says is that it's the time a parent spends with a child to help them survive and thrive in their society or in the world that they're living in. Okay? It's all about survival. So the more parental investment you have, the better your child is supposed to survive. Okay? And that's part of sociobiology theory. Alright, do you have any questions about that? Good. Alright. So let's get to social learning theory. You know something about social learning theory, right? A little bit, guys, remember? Kind of? Okay. It's derived from the School of Behavioral Psychology for all you psychology majors out there. It goes on rewards and punishments to learn behavior about our gender, okay? So, if a little boy comes out and he's wearing his sister's dress, and dad says, no, you're changing right now, and is very disapproval of, or, gives a lot of disapproval for that, the little boy learns right then that he is not supposed to wear dresses, okay? But if he comes out, in his, I don't know, cut-off t-shirt and mesh shorts or boots or whatever it is, and dad's like, all right, that's a good outfit, then the little boy knows, hey, that's how I'm supposed to dress, okay? If the little boy starts pushing the stroller with the baby in it, dad's like, you're not playing with that, okay? He knows that's not how he's supposed to act, okay? All right, and then we have modeling, role modeling. This is all part of social learning theory as well, okay? Role modeling is basically that, okay? Your child will imitate what the same-sex parent does, okay? And that's modeling for them. So a little boy might, those little play razors, they can pretend to shave their face, so they can do it with their dad. That's part of modeling, okay? And then when he does that, dad's like, hey, bud, that's great, And he's getting that reward for that, okay? So he's learning there. He's learning that he's going to model after his dad and his behaviors. Same with the girl. We see little girls playing mom, right? Playing house and playing mom. That's modeling. They're modeling after their mothers. Any questions about that? Okay, This is in your book. It's the Oedipal complex. Has anybody heard of this? It's pretty interesting. We love Freud, okay? We debugged Freud a lot, but if we didn't have Freud, we wouldn't have the emphasis on different things that we have now, okay? We would not be where we are with what we know if we didn't have Freud. But Freud says that the children go through an Oedipal complex, especially the boys, okay? That boys will develop a heterosexual love for his mother at about age 3, okay? So he wants to be with his mom. Right? He is gonna be with his mom, he loves her, loves her, loves her. Not a mother, or not like a parental kind of way, but as in a relationship kind of way. But, as he gets a little bit into these feelings and stuff like that, he realizes that even though he wants to push his father out of the way so he can have mom, he can't. Okay? And that dad will psychologically castrate him if he tries to go after mom. Okay? What do we mean by that? He's definitely gonna shut the little boy down, right? Okay? So eventually, the boy knows that he's not allowed to fancy his mother. Okay? So he has to repress his feelings, and he starts modeling after his dad. So he starts becoming rigid. He won't show emotions. Okay? Because if he shows emotions, he might show that he loves his mom in that kind of way. And he can't do that, because dad will get him. Alright? And that's the Oedipal complex. Alright, so then what Freud is saying is that even though the little boy wants to be with his mom, he starts modeling after his dad. And that's how gender role is depicted through that. Okay, do you have any questions about that? Pretty easy. Okay. He also argues that girls do not go through the same, but, I mean, they go kind of through a process, they love their dad and stuff like that when they with their dad, but it's not as rigid as with the boys, and the girls will relate to their mothers easier, and that then depicts their behaviors as girls, where they are more open, they can talk easier, they can connect better, because that's how they are with their mothers. Alright? Yes?
I heard that women end up marrying somebody like their dad, or usually do, or something like that.
Oh, you should have been in my class, because that's a whole other lecture in this class. Yes, that is a theory. I don't want to get into it because it's not this lecture, but that is a theory about mate selection. Okay? That they go for those that remind them of their mother or their father. There.
And doesn't the mom, I also heard that the mother determines the masculinity of the boy or something like that. Like,
I don't know if I've heard that theory before, but you may be right. I might have to look into it more.
I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
I very may well be. There's a lot of theories about gender. We're just touching on, the most popular ones. There's a bunch. Alright, so let's go on again with some Freud. Freud also, this kind of progresses after the Oedipal complex. We've already kind of talked about it. Freud coined, and we call it identification. Okay? And identification is when the boy identifies with his father, or the girl identifies with her mother. Okay? And that's how they get into gender roles and start acting in those behaviors. Alright, so like I said, they'll take on the roles of the parent they identify with. Alright, so let's get into cognitive development. This blends the biological and social learning views. Okay? Because we know cognitively, that's like a biological kind of aspect, right? We progress at different stages and things like that as you're growing up. But it talks about how the biological readiness of a child, in terms of their cognitive development, influences how the child responds to gender cues in the environment. So here it says gender discrimination begins at 2.5 years of age. Before that, everybody's the same. Okay? There's not a difference between boys and girls. There's no difference there. We just think we have different hairstyles and we dress differently. Okay? When before 2.5, you don't know that there are biological differences or anything else. Everybody's the same. Okay? Have you watched two babies play together that might be a boy and a girl? There's no difference between them, are there? No, they act pretty much the same. Okay? But gender discrimination begins at about 2.5. Okay? Let's see. However, even though we start discriminating against it, and we realize that, this is a boy and this is a girl, it's not permanent. Okay? We don't view it as being a permanent thing. We view it when we're that age as, if I cut my hair short and I start dressing as a boy and start being, boyish and masculine, I can become a boy. And that's how you become a boy. at 2.5. So one day, I might decide I want to be a girl, okay? And then the next day, I'm going to be a boy. Have you ever seen that, little kids? Okay? Yes?
Is that where like tomboys come from?
We'll talk about that in just a minute, okay? That is part of this lecture. But have you ever seen that as a kid where a little girl wakes up, she's like, I'm going to be a boy today. I had a little cousin who just decided that. She woke up, no one was helping her dress or anything. She comes out with her hat inside, with these long shorts on, this baggy t-shirt of her brother's, and she comes out and she goes, that ain't not Ellie anymore. We're like, what is it? It's Eric. You're all right. Okay? Little kids do that. Alright. So let's get on to sex role theory. Okay? How about Parsons? Who remembers him? Yeah? You guys are talking kind of loud today. I can hear you. Okay. So who remembers Talcott Parsons? Anybody? What is it? Or who is it? What theory does he go with? Functionalism, thank you. Okay. So, we get to structural functionalism here, okay? It's a theoretical tradition claiming that every society has certain functions, blah, 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 for us all to run smoothly. You guys remember that, right? Well, he says that we have to go through our sex roles and our gender roles in order to run smoothly as family units, family units, and then again, all the way up into society. Okay? It's a theory that men and women perform their sex roles as breadwinners, wives, mothers, blah, blah, blah. Because the nuclear family is the ideal arrangement, and when we're talking about that is we're talking about the traditional family here, okay? Mom, dad, kids. Alright? And it's fulfilling the function of reproducing workers. So he's saying that the function of the family has to function smoothly in order for them to raise a child that's going to be able to function smoothly in society and progress society, okay? Does that make sense? I'm going to tell you that you need to remember this for another part of this lecture. Okay. So let's get into agents of socialization. You guys remember this? School, family, peers, blah, blah, blah. Right? You remember us talking about that? Kinda? Anybody? Yeah? Alright, good. So we're just going to fly through this part. Okay. So we know that family, we talked about it before, it is the first and primary part of socialization for us. Okay? And they socialize us into our gender first. They're the first ones to do it. We already talked about how they start. They find out that they're having a boy. So they dress up the nursery in masculine things or, blues and stuff like that. They pick out a boy name. They buy boy clothes, buy boy toys. Okay? They're not buying boys Barbie dolls, right? Because that's not how we do it, is it? Alright, so we are already socializing the boy to be a boy. Okay? Now, here's where your tomboy comment comes in, okay? Siblings also impact our gender, okay? And how we go about how we identify with our gender. So let me ask you this. If there's a family with 5 kids, the youngest of the girls and 4 are boys. The oldest 4 are boys. How does that impact the girl? She becomes a tomboy, right? Because she is socialized by these boys who do boy behaviors. Okay, they're not wrestling around in mud and whatever. And she's like, heck yeah, I'm not with them. Because that's what they do. So that's what she's socialized as. Okay, and the same goes as opposite. And if there's a boy who has 4 sisters, he might show a little bit more feminine characteristics. Okay. Let's compare the girl with 4 older brothers to the girl with 4 older sisters. What's the difference between those 2 girls? The one with all the sisters, they probably paint each other's nails and play with each other's hair, and I don't know, they might play princess or something like that. But the boys, like we already said, they're out playing tag football, and the little girls running around with them. Like, heck yes, I smear dirt all over my face, right? Okay, you guys got it. Alright. We know race and ethnicity, that helps with our socialization too, it impacts it. With this, we talked about the ways that it impacts it. African Americans are more egalitarian in their relationships, okay, they're more equal compared to other races such as Caucasians, okay? We, as a race, or within our society at least, we're talking here in America, we have this, you know, when the guys that had a household and all that fun stuff, okay? African Americans don't have those same traditional roles. Hispanics, their gender roles are dependent upon their ethnicity as well. It's dependent on who works outside the home has the most power. So if the woman works outside the home, she has the most power in that household. Okay? It's who works outside of the house more, who brings in more. That's where the power lies. So it's interesting to see that. Alright, and then our peers. Do you guys remember the flag discourse we talked about? Anybody remember that? Where, you know, boys in high school, they do something, and their friends call them a fag, they're socializing them to act more boyish. That's this right here, okay? So we'll skip back and skip past that and talk about the family life cycle. I know you guys haven't been introduced to the family life cycle. The family life cycle is exactly as it sounds. That families go through certain stages, okay? So a couple gets together, they get engaged, they get married, they have kids, the child goes to school, the child becomes a teenager, the child grows up and moves out, and now it's just them again. And then, you know, they retire, and then one dies, and then the other dies. And that's the family life cycle. Okay? All those stages are part of the family life cycle. Alright? Okay. So with that, we see that our peers influence us and help socialize us when we get into a new stage. Okay? Such as when you're in a group of friends and your friends have babies, and then you decide that you and your spouse are going to have a baby, and your friends take you underneath their wing, and they teach you like all the great ways of how to raise a kid, right? That's part of socialization. They're helping you move into that step, right? They're socializing you to be new parents, all right? Do you have any questions about that? We're good about socialization and the agents of socialization. Oh, I forgot religion. Religion is a big one, okay? They did a study, and this upper level class is doing something called pretty fun. And they studied Americans who are 18 years and older, and then 65% say that religion is very important in their lives. And why is that important in their gender roles? Okay? In religion, it shapes a traditional view of family, doesn't it? Religion states male and female married, right? Okay? So that's a traditional form of marriage. They also state that men are the head of household. Okay? That's a big thing. In fact, we see in, I'm not going to say a lot, but we see in certain types of religions that women cannot take, you know, clergy positions or anything like that, right? Such as in the Roman Catholic and Mormons. Okay? So the emphasis is on men and on the domination of men, and that men are more powerful. Let's see here. And here's just a research fact. Stronger religiosity for men creates them to be more sexist in their view of women. Okay? Meaning that the more religious the male is or a man is, maybe the more he views these traditional gender roles of females where they need to stay in the home, they shouldn't work, they're going to be the main caregivers of their children, you know, that kind of thing. Okay? Alright. And then we have economy. Who's heard of occupational sex segregation? It's really easy because as soon as I say it, you're going to be like, oh, that's what that is. It's the concentration of women in certain occupations and men in other occupations. So, like, some occupations are just for women and some are just for men. Right? Okay? I think, obviously, I'm from a social work background that's dominated by women. Okay? And if they hire a man and they're like, oh yes, I hope he stays forever. Okay? He will never lose his job. Alright? And we see this in occupations that are mostly males, which we mentioned it earlier, firefighters, right? Yeah, most of them are males. Okay, the men. Policemen. Okay, most of them are men. Yes, there's more women entering the field, and we can do that too. But anyways, okay. So female-dominated occupations usually require less education and have less status. Kind of makes sense, right? Because if they're going to have kids and everything else, they don't have time to go to school. Huh? Yeah? So if you don't have that higher education and credentials and stuff like that, you get paid less. Yeah, we'll get more into that too. But let's take it this way. Surgeons, it's mostly a male-dominated field, right? Yeah. Hairstylists, mostly women, right? But we're seeing women becoming surgeons. It is not reciprocating though, because we're not seeing more men becoming hairstylists. It's unequal. Women are trying to pursue these men's jobs because they're higher status and higher paying. But we're not seeing men try to get women's jobs. Okay, you see the inequality there, the imbalance? Alright. We also know there's inequality due to gender and pay, right? We talked about that before. So let's get more into it in a minute. Alright. Let's talk about mass media. You guys remember media and socialization? Yeah? Alright. What they found is they studied 25 primetime TV shows. Okay? And what they found is that the characters in there and the roles that they play depict traditional gender roles. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the gender roles that they depict in TV shows. How do they portray men in these TV shows? In popular TV shows. You guys are mostly my college class. My night class is not so much, but my night class was rattling them off. Come on, guys.
What kind of shows are you talking about?
Huh?
Like TV shows?
Any primetime TV shows, so popular ones that like everybody watches.
Lost, whatever's on. Jackson's like the leader. Sorry.
Okay, so how did they portray these guys in that show?
Masculine.
Masculine, okay.
Making the big decisions.
They had more charge, okay. What else?
Aggressive.
Aggressive. What else? Yeah.
Protectors.
Protectors. I saw you raise your hand right in the back. No? Okay, I was just kidding.
Somewhat crude about their humor sometimes.
Crude, yeah. Okay, we'll get into that. Most of them have jobs, right? Yeah, most of them, huh? I mean, depending on the show, most of them have jobs, if that's where their environment is. And what kind of jobs do these guys usually have? In these primetime TV shows.
Higher status, higher paying jobs.
Higher status jobs, yeah, they do. There's one more I'm looking for.
How?
Huh? Power, yes. What else? They're sexually driven, right? These guys, they want sex in these TV shows. Okay? What about the women? How are they portrayed?
The opposite?
Okay, what are some characteristics? First, let me get you a good one. What about hip-hop videos or rap videos? How are women dressed? Like they're almost naked, right? What does that tell us? Women are sex objects, right? We see it in magazines all the time, okay? I can't even tell you how many covers of magazines I've seen of naked women, okay? I can tell you that from my memory, my personal experiences, I can only remember one cover where a guy was naked, and that was David Beckham. Anybody remember talking about that? Okay, that's the only one I can remember. I mean, yeah, we've seen where they're, shirts off and they're showing off their masculine abs, but that's the only one that I can remember where there's a naked guy on it. But we see girls all the time, don't we? When photos are leaked to celebrities, what gender are they? They're females, right? I mean, freaking society does not care about these naked guys out there taking pictures. Okay? It's all about the girls. Because they're sex objects. Okay? What else about girls? how are they portrayed in these TV shows?
More feminine.
More feminine, yes. They're more emotional, right? Okay? They stay at home more. They don't work as much as the guys in these TV shows. Or they're given the roles of, caregiver of the kid or whatever it is. Okay? We see it all the time. Okay? And it's shoved in our faces all the time in this media. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the positive consequences and the negative consequences of being a female or a male in our society. Okay? So, for a female, here's the list of them. We're going to go into each one of them one by one. Okay? Alright, so women, we've already talked about they get less income than men. Okay? And here it is broken down. There is almost a $20,000 difference between a bachelor's degree. Again, almost a $20,000 difference between a master's degree. And it even goes up more. There's like a $14,000, $15,000 difference with the doctorate degree. Okay? For the exact same degree. That's pretty crazy, right? That happens all the time. It's all about sexism here, okay? We talk about sexism and we define it later, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is define it for you. Sexism is the systematic discrimination against one gender, okay? It's not always against females. We can be sexist against males too. Alright, so I want you to keep that up. Women get paid less because they will work less. Or they will work for less. Okay? They will accept lower pay. And they prioritize family over career advancement and income. Okay? So instead of, staying in the office all day trying to get, a partner or get the next promotion or whatever, they have to go home and take care of the child or, the household. Or if the kid gets sick, they have to call for work and they have to go home with their child. Okay? Employers know that. Alright, then we have the feminization of poverty. That's the idea that women are disproportionately experience poverty, okay? There are more women in poverty than there are men. Alright, you hear single moms being in poverty a lot more than you hear single dads being in poverty, right? Probably because guys make $20,000 more a year. And women are dependent on men for income, right? So if they divorce, okay, it might just be dad, because usually women get custody of the child, so now they're supporting not just one person, but maybe two or more on their income alone, okay? Head of household women compared to married couple income is $32,597 versus $71,830. That's a huge gap. Okay, that's a big difference. Women tend to work less hours than men to keep that money. We've already talked about that. The patriarchal family. Okay, patriarchy is a term in your book. So who remembers what patriarchy is? Yes?
Sort of like led by the mom.
Other way.
Led by the dad.
Led by the dad, yes. They are led by the dad, okay? Patriarchy is led by the dad. So, in our society, we have more patriarchal family, okay? And that is that women are dependent on men and downgraded to domestic roles, okay? Women live longer than men. So if we live longer, of course there's more of us, right? So yes, overrepresentation in feminization, or in poverty. Complex theorists say that men are more powerful roles than women and use their powers to dictate incomes and salaries of women. Does that resonate with anybody? Think of our interlocking directorates. Who are on those boards? Rich men, right? And if they're on the board, if you're an agency and you're the boss of somebody and say, okay, I want to give them a raise, you have to go to the board to get it approved, okay, to increase their salary. And if it's the men on the board, who, according to conflict theorists, they're saying, and they're not doing that, they're not going to give it to them, okay? If they have more power, they're not giving the women the higher salaries, okay? Functionalists, so like Scott Morrison, says that keeping women's salaries low keeps the dependent and in child care positions to protect equilibrium in the family. They're saying that if they raise the salaries of women, then they will no longer stay on the phone to fight it. And then function all right, and they can't function too good anymore. And mess it all up. Okay? That makes sense. Alright. Okay. Oh, we're gonna learn about speed. Alright, so we're gonna have a higher rate of men. Okay, men, they receive more bodily fluids than male users in a course. But also, guys have more partners with women. Okay? And remember when we're talking about that poster, if you guys have to personally contact this many, this many, apply that to here, okay? And women's risk of STDs go whoop, way up. Also, you guys are going to stare at me when I say this, because I always get the same reaction. But think about general society here, okay? General society. Women feel limited power to influence their partner wear condoms. So if they are getting ready to active, behaviors of sexual intercourse, and she says, and he says, man, I don't have any, she feels powerless to say, okay, we're not going to do it then. And they wind up having sex that way. Guys are unprotected and risk of STDs. Okay? Alright, because remember, guys are dominant. Okay, so, negative body image. You all know about that, right? We talked about it. Okay. Obviously it exists in our culture, does not exist throughout the world. We know in other cultures it is attracted in a form of wealth if women are heavier. Okay? There is a culture, I can't remember where it's at or what it's called. I don't know, maybe. I'm going to fix them in Africa. I don't know, but anyway, they actually force feed their daughters, okay, so they will gain weight, so that way they can find an appropriate suitor who has wealth and can take care of them and everything else. Because the more they weigh, the more it says they have money and everything else. Okay? So it's not existent. Our ideas of perfect body and stuff like that is not existent throughout the world. American society values women. There's your sexism. Sexism again goes against nature plus male dominance. And then feminists hate this. The Melville is what I can't even say it. It's basically good sexism. Okay? And if you believe that women are innocent creatures, we should be protected and supported by men. Why do feminists hate that?
Equal or more powerful.
Not more powerful, they want to treat equal. Yeah, okay? Remember, feminists are not, women are better and everything else, and that's how a lot of people view feminism, but that's not what they go for. They would hate actually what we do. They absolutely hate this because it paints the female as being vulnerable and not independent and not able to take care of herself. That's why they hate it. Okay? It's basically saying that there's no way that women can be equal to men. Alright. So women also experience less marital satisfaction in their marriages. Now you guys don't really need to know this, it's just in there for fun facts. Wives have poor mental health than their husbands, they tend to be more angry and depressed, and they say it's due to the power differential in relationships. Okay? Because men have more power. Alright. They have longer life expectancy, stronger relationship focus. Okay, so they want a relationship to stay good and everything else, and they focus a lot more on it than guys. They keep the relationships on track, and they get to bond with their children. That's all great things about being a female. Okay, so let's talk about men. Alright, we'll go in order so I can read them all together. Alright, so their identity is tied to their jobs. Okay? Have you ever met a new guy and he's like, I'm a lawyer, my name is Mike. Have you ever experienced that? Yeah, because that's how guys are identified, okay? Their status is completely on the jobs that they have in our society, okay? Men are less likely to take vacation time because they're so dedicated to their jobs because that makes up their identity, okay? Let's see here. However, we are seeing a shift, okay? We're seeing a shift that there's some more stay-at-home dads. Anybody have an idea why? there's this shift in another gender role, right? What is that shift? We talked about it. What are women doing?
Going out and getting full-time jobs.
They're going out and taking guys' jobs, right? So they're becoming breadwinners. So now the dads can stay at home. So we're seeing shifts in that. Okay. Men work more, so they don't have as many relationships, as many friends as women do. Okay? So they don't have as many confidants. Okay? And we know that being able to hold up videos on that fact. Women who have weekly judicial sessions, like for girls, stuff like that, with bends and everything else, are healthier than women who have. Fun fact. So let's schedule in that room. Okay? Men, however, don't have that today. We don't have those friends and things that can do that with every single week. Okay, so that creates stress. Alright. Expression of emotion. Guys are not allowed to express their emotions, right? And if we see a guy randomly crying, we're like, ooh, something's wrong with him. Aren't we? Yeah, that shouldn't happen, right? Because guys are supposed to be tough, okay? They can't show their emotions. That's what girls do. Your girl needs to cry. Alright? I'm just kidding, we're not really, but according to our society, you are. Alright? Men who are emotional in media are often highlighted. Okay? There was a congressman. Anybody know anything about this? I can't remember. I'm really deal with that. There was a congressman a few years back in the media. He started bawling. He was doing an interview, but he just started crying. And the media went nuts and started saying that he wasn't credible anymore. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'll have to look it up. Alright.
Man cried 2 years ago.
What was it?
Hillary Clinton cried. Young man from Ohio.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I mean, for he's usually a really rough guy, so for him it's a big deal. It doesn't matter if he's moving or not.
Exactly, right? It's this big, tough, masculine guy who's supposed to lead us, and, you know, because he's a politician and all that fun stuff, cries, and we're like, ooh, you know, he's a crybaby. We don't want him going gross, right? Okay. Alright, a part of this also, a study of soldiers showed they didn't express emotions when dealing with PTSD due to fear of being weak. That they would be viewed as weak if they showed that they were dealing with this illness. Okay? So that's how much this is ingrained in guys, not to show their emotions. And remember, during the Oedipal complex, they get a rigid ego of emotions so that they follow their father, they can't show emotions anymore, they have to repress it all. Alright, they have fear of intimacy, because again, you're not allowed to show emotions, so you're less supportive and more competitive. Emotional attachment is blamed on the parental. Okay, so you guys have a hard time bonding with children and things like that, because you're not supposed to be emotional, right? Alright, that's pretty self-explanatory. Custody issues, we know that usually women get visitation, because again, men are viewed as not being able to care for children as the way women can because of emotional issues. Just saying that's the view. I'm not saying anything else about that. Men die typically 5 years sooner than women. Again, we think it might be due to stress. Because if you can't let out emotions, and you're always at work, and you're always trying to get promotion, and your whole identity is how well you do at your job and everything else and what your job is, that creates a lot of stress, right? And what does stress do? And what kind of things does it do to your body? Okay, increases cortisol levels, makes your blood pressure shoot up, right? You have a heart attack. You know, all kinds of things. It freaks you out. But also, it can lead to risky behaviors, such as drinking. You know, everybody in here probably gets drunk on finals week, right? So stressful. I'm just kidding. Okay, leads to smoking, drug abuse. Okay, another risky behavior. Like, you know, the guy who says, this is such a stressful day, I'm going to take out my favorite car and, you know, my favorite 5-speed and go on around that. It's pretty risky, okay? Stress can lead to risky sexual encounters, okay? That happens a lot too, right? Alright. Okay, but benefits of being a male is you have freedom of movement. What do I mean by that? You're not tied down as much as women are, okay? They're saying as in the more the here and now type of thing, like guys are always looking over their shoulder about the racist parties like women are, right? Okay, guys are pretty good to go somewhere, move around, on their dog and stuff like that. Women, not so much. Okay, but guys also, unless you get custody, you're not as tied down to the children, right? It might offend some people, but it's generally in our society true. Okay. There's a greater available pool of partners. If girls live longer, and guys do not, we already know there's more females in the world, right? We also have another aspect called the mating gradient. Okay? The mating gradient says that women marry up. And what do I mean by that? Women marry men who have higher statuses than they have. Okay? So they marry a man who might have more income than they do, have higher education, and things like that. Now with that makes the women's pool smaller, doesn't it? Also, wait a minute, let me think out of order this. I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so they marry up, men have a greater pool of age. Because men can date girls that are younger, right? Okay? But if a girl dates a guy that's way younger, she's a what?
Cougar.
Oh, she's a cougar, right? Okay, and everybody was a cougar. But, men have larger ages that they can, or not larger, but more ages that they can date within, rather than women, okay? If a 50-year-old guy becomes single, he can date a 30 or 40-year-old woman. But a woman who's 50 years old, actually the same age rate, okay? So that's that. Normally initiating relationships. Men usually initiate the relationship, right? Usually, high school prom. The guys after the girls, right? So you're fun little proposal. But the guys after the girls, okay? And engagement. Usually it's the guy asking the girl, right? Okay? That's all for the guy initiates it because he's more aggressive. Alright, so let's talk, we're almost finished. Did anybody see or hear about Emma Watson talking to the UN about gender? I see some people nodding yes. Okay, this is all what she was talking about, okay? This whole concept that we're getting ready to talk about. Androgyny is a blend of traits that are stereotypically associated with masculinity and femininity, okay? So they want to blend them together as androgyny, alright? Physiological androgyny is intersex individuals' genitals are neither male nor female and mixing of chromosomes and hormones, okay? So that's like biologically blended, okay? Behavioral androgyny is what Emma Watson was talking about. The view of androgyny that is devoid of negative traits associated with masculinity and femininity. So if you're feminine, one of the negative traits is that people who are feminine are emotional, okay? So in this positive androgyny, or behavioral androgyny, sorry. No, right, positive androgyny. And that, bad trait of being too emotional is not considered negative, okay? The trait of maybe not having enough emotions, things like that, is not considered negative. You want to blend them all together, okay? Men being sexually aggressive or whatever, not considered negative. Considered just a blend of everything, okay? People who blend these traits, okay, have both masculine and feminine features or characteristics, are better at coping. Okay, why is that? Let me put it this way. If you are feminine, aren't you lacking some resources that people who are masculine have? Yeah, you are, right? Because if you're feminine, you're not competitive, you're not aggressive. What are some other things here? Some of those traits. If you're masculine, you're missing out on the emotional kind of stuff, okay? So we can see if we blend them, they have more resources then to cope. Okay. And then we have gender role transcendence, which is abandoning gender frameworks and looking at phenomena independent of traditional gender categories. Okay? So we wouldn't look at it as, female gender and male gender, Okay? We would create almost a new kind of gender, a third one. Alright? We know that women are becoming more masculine as defined by society, right? They're taking on more guys' jobs. They're doing more outside work. Okay? Those are masculine traits. So women are becoming more masculine. But men are not becoming more feminine. Okay? That's gender role transcendence. Alright. And then this is the last one. And I have one more slide that I need you guys to pay attention to. Okay? There's gender postmodernism. Gender postmodernism abandons the notion that genders are natural and focus on the social construction of genders or of individuals in a society. So what we're saying there is that we socially construct gender, right? We already said it, that we make gender what it is. What this gender postmodernism is saying is that we should throw that out, okay? Let people be who they are. Create the third gender, which is you be who you are. Whether it's feminine and masculine, you know, more feminine with some masculinity, or whatever it is. Okay? And that's what Emma Watson is really getting into. Let's see here. Calls for new social structures based on equality, diversity, and right to self-determination. Meaning, you're not socialized to act the way that you have to act. Okay? Meaning, if you're a guy and you want to cry a little bit, you can cry a little bit, it's all good. You know, girls, you're going to be a tomboy, be a tomboy. You get to decide that, not society. Okay? And that's gender postmodernism. Do you have any questions about androgyny or anything like that? Pretty good? If you're interested in it, which I think is very interesting, you should check out Emma Watson's video on YouTube. Her speech to the UN about this. It's a very, very good speech. Okay, so since I deviated from your book, I wanted to highlight some terms that came from your book that you need to take note of now. Sexual harassment. You guys know what sexual harassment is, right? Do I need to define it? We're good? Okay. The glass ceiling, though, is something I do need to define for you. Does anybody know what I'm talking about with the glass ceiling? Kind of? Okay. The glass ceiling is when we're talking about the economy, when I was saying that with socialization and all that. This would fit onto that slide. The glass ceiling is where women are almost discriminated, or not saying almost, they are discriminated, okay, in the workplace. Where women can move so far up and then all of a sudden they're stuck. Okay, they can't move up any further, whereas guys can. So a woman might work all the way up in her corporation or organization or whatever, and she's, you know, regular CEO. But she'll never, I won't say ever, never, but the likelihood of her getting that CEO position over a guy is kind of slim, okay? And that's the glass ceiling, all right? I'm saying you can go up as high as you want, but you're not going to go all the way to the top. Now the glass escalators is the opposite. It's for guys, okay? That's where men go right up the, you know, ladder or whatever, all the way up to the top. All right, we talked about sexism and patriarchy. Anybody need me to go over that again? No? Okay. Essentialism? Anybody want to give me the definition of essentialism? And that's what I gave you the definition of essentialism. Is in the beginning of your chapter about kind of doing. Of naturalness, right? So natural, you can think of essential, biology, kind of things like that, okay? It's the line of thought that we need these essential things, all right? And then that also goes to biological determination. Biological determination is on the same page. What is it?
Line of thought that explains certain behavior in terms of who you are.
Okay, does that make sense? Alright, because in the natural world, we're talking about nature, which is biology, right? Okay, so it's saying that biological determination, if you're born a boy, you're going to be a boy. Okay? Any questions? High five, guys. You finished the whole chapter. I feel accomplished. You guys feel accomplished? Yes. That's great.
That's why next Tuesday.
We're going to have hot lunch Tuesday. See you after lunch Thursday. No, not today. I need to make